Tensions are escalating for a fifth day in Los Angeles after protests against immigration and customs enforcement gripped the city, with the demonstrators clashing with law enforcement. US President Donald Trump has deployed thousands of troops, including 700 active duty US Marines, to Los Angeles, despite California Governor Gavin Newsom saying the move is unnecessary and will inflame the situation. Trump claimed that Newsom and Los Angeles mayor paid troublemakers and agitators. In a hardline speech at an army base on Tuesday, Donald Trump said that Los Angeles was being invaded by a foreign enemy and vowed to liberate the city after days of protests sparked by immigration raids.
Under the Trump administration, this anarchy will not stand. We will not allow federal agents to be attacked, and we will not allow an American city to be invaded and conquered by a foreign enemy. And that's what they are. A lot of those people were let in here by the Biden administration. They just poured right in. In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent. And they paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders. That's what it is. They're invaders. No different.
Los Angeles mayor announced a local emergency curfew in effect for downtown Los Angeles starting tonight USA time. She said violence, crime and vandalism would not be tolerated, vowing the police would hunt down the wrongdoers.
I wanted to let the city know that I have declared a local emergency and issued a curfew for downtown Los Angeles to stop the vandalism, to stop the looting. Many businesses have now been affected by or vandalized. Last night, there were 23 businesses that were looted. And I think that if you drive through downtown LA, the graffiti is everywhere and has caused significant damages to businesses and a number of properties.
And for more on this, I'm joined by Lead India correspondent Jessica Taneja. Good morning, Jessica. Reports are coming on of overnight curfew as well imposed by the mayor now. Fill us in with more details on this.
Right, and you heard the Los Angeles mayor Karen Bass talk about looting and rioting in LA. And certainly that has become a concern overnight, leading to the curfew, as you pointed out. Now, the curfew stays till 6 p.m. tomorrow, LA time, and certainly would have effect on not just the local community, but people living there as well. Remember, LA has been able to build itself in the backbone of migrants coming in from El Salvador, from Guatemala, from Honduras, three crucial, states. Countries that have been of concern for the United States, especially when it comes to illegal immigration. And Deepika, as you'd recall, the reason why these protests started was because of the ICE agents, who had gone into these particular areas where the migrants reside and had questioned them on their status of migration and trying to understand as to what this is. And this is the kind of agitation that led further to what we're witnessing in Los Angeles right now. The whole agitation against these ICE agents coming into their communities and questioning people who are on a daily wage, especially the garment factory workers, the people who work in hotels and shops, etc. So this was certainly a very difficult point for the local administration, as well as bringing in the larger question of how the dynamics of the American politics have completely changed from here on. Because now the question boils down to separation of powers. How much authority, would the federal government have in case when it comes to states' security assets, especially when you talk about National Guards? I mean, there have been instances in the past where the National Guards, have been taken out of the state's authority and completely in control of the federal authority to quell protests like these. But how further can this go is what we need to see.
And as you're saying, Trump also justified sending troops while the mayor reiterated requests for calling off the raids. Meanwhile, violent protests are continuing as it is. What sort of a message does it send across the world, as this is yet another internal conflict of the US making headlines across the globe?
Well, that's right, Deepika. You and I have noticed in the recent past when it comes to the Trump administration, nothing really qualifies as a headline because there's always more in the offing. And it's just some time where you have to wait and see on how things completely change when it comes to the United States and its messaging to the world, especially when it comes to how it conducts its own internal affairs. Now, given the current situation, there are many questions being raised. To what extent would the federal authority sort of overtake of what the state could do? Because if you look at the state of California right now, you observe the statements of the governor, Gavin Newsom, even last night, you look at the statements coming from the mayor, Karen Bass, all seem to suggest that there is an ongoing tussle where the American President Donald Trump could float this suggestion on one of his press conferences, suggesting that there could be, an action taken against Governor Gavin Newsom if he fails to cooperate with the federal government when it comes to issues and protests and violent protests like this, where rioting has now, it's to the stage of rioting and looting, certainly calls the attention of National Guards and, of course, those troops being deployed at one of the Pendleton bases closer to, LA. But the question then again, boils down to the fact that, Deepika, will Donald Trump, will the President of the United States go ahead and overrule the Posse Comitatus Act? Just for a little bit of reference to our viewers, the Posse Comitatus Act was brought in 1887. It is a special act in a sense where the federal government of the United States is not allowed to use its own military or their own military troops now. Military troops as in the Marines, because the National Guards are different. That's the ruckus over. So if you talk about, deploying military troops, the US Marines on the streets of LA, that would be overruling Posse Comitatus, because the Posse Comitatus Act doesn't allow the federal government to deploy troops on US citizens on its own soil.
Let's see how it goes on, because we are currently also...
Certainly, just a minute, let me finish that point a bit for the viewers, because that would give out the right kind of context of what I'm trying to say. So that would be the next hurdle between the state and the American administration at this point. How does it move ahead? Will it actually go ahead and deploy troops? That is something we need to see. This rioting goes out of control, Deepika.
All right, there we are also showcasing, showing the visuals straight from Los Angeles, how the ruckus is going on and how the protests are still continuing. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us and bringing us the latest with a rounded perspective on the current brewing situation in the US.